Personnel Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please, Melissa.
Brandon Noble will be absent. Steve Brenner.
Here.
Jenna Barnett is coming. She's running late. Dave Reeser.
Here.
And Ron Sang.
Here.
Okay. Is there any public comment at this time? Hearing none. Moving on to Wellness Program Initiative First Responders.
I would like to turn it over to Sergeant Quinter and Captain Holmes, other than to say that the information they're going to present to you, there is no cost outlay being requested from the borough at this time, as funding is already in the 2024 budget to cover what they're going to discuss. On that note.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm not sure how much we're going to outlay of a program, but I think Michelle deserves credit for coming up with this initiative and talking to us about it originally. So I think we're just trying to think outside the box as a borough. I think in general we've been ahead of the curve in these areas. So I think we're trying to say what's going on in today's world, what's going on with people, first responders in general, what they're dealing with day to day, and then what they're dealing with after retirement and giving their 25 years of service to a community. So mental health is big in that aspect. I think recently we had Palmer, we had an officer involved shooting here, and we saw the toll that takes mental health wise on some of our people. The fire guys deal with stuff every day that they're seeing. People don't invite us to their house to have coffee and have dinner. They invite us and call 911 when it's the worst day of their lives. So that's what our people deal with. So we're trying to say, how can we take care of them? And how can we be smart and save the borough money too for being off hurt, whether it's mental health or physical. So we looked at some other things and we came up with some ideas and some program and plans that are out there to say, hey, what can we do to do this in a cost-effective way and just look at the big picture.
Most of the emphasis focuses on doing stuff ahead of an incident happening, giving our employees, the first responders, more tools in their toolbox to protect themselves in the long run, and help with navigating how to get in touch with certain aspects like our EAP program, how to get in touch with a mental health provider if we need it, and maintain that confidentiality and that pure persona where we don't feel ostracized for the need to be able to go and ask for help. That whole stigma that surrounds first responders seeking mental health help is truly a huge wall to topple that. And I think this is, in one way, a very good approach to do that and reduce that stigma.
I think one of the shocking things, last month or the month before, there was 4 deputies out in LA. They supervised separately in the same day. First time ever in a 24-hour period. Just I think 3 were retired, 1 was active duty. Not related in any way, but just they're a big organization. That was kind of shocking to the stuff that goes on every year. So again, that kind of helped fuel just what we need to do. And I don't think we're trying to reinvent anything that's not out there. I think it's just saying, hey, how can we support it as a whole, meaning council's involvement too, to say, hey, this is something we care about. It's something I think we can roll into recruitment in today's world, which isn't easy either. That we have a program we're looking into more than just the normal things we give people. We have a program to look at their well-being.
So to circle back, this kind of started when I became manager. I went to both the fire chief and the police chief and said, I've seen some pretty traumatic things in my life, but your employees, our employees, do this day in and day out, and that's got to take a toll. So what do we do when something bad happens to give them resources that they can take care of themselves? And it led into this bigger conversation, really with Captain Holmes first, because of him going through the EFO course and doing his research paper, his capstone paper on mental health in the fire service industry, and it being something that is not talked about. So we started meeting and talking, and it led into this bigger overall wellness initiative where, yes, we're talking about mental health, and some of it is as simple as, here's our EAP plan that you, an employee, probably know nothing about. Here's phone numbers you can call, everything from mental health to you can get assistance writing a will, you can get help with financial planning. There's a whole bunch of resources that are through our current insurance program, already paid for by the employer that are available to employees that we can do a better job of promoting and getting information out on. One of the other pieces to that is after doing ride-alongs with both departments, wearing their gear, seeing what they do, that takes a physical toll on their bodies, both in terms of running from call to call, they don't have time to stop and get a healthy meal, or running from call to call wearing 40 to 70 pounds of weight. Now my hips hurt, now my shoulder hurts, now I aggravated something. So this is twofold. Part of it is starting in-house with a wellness consultant. Having someone dedicated, and this would not be an employee, it would be a consultant, so a subcontractor. But having someone dedicated to spend roughly 5 hours a week between the police department and the fire department of, hey, what's going on with you this week? You got some shoulder pain, did you know? You can, through your existing health insurance plan, you can go and get a prescription for physical therapy. You go and see that physical therapist and do whatever it is that they prescribe for you to start making that shoulder pain go away. Now, what is the, buy-in, so to speak, we give that employee to continue doing that? There's a long-term benefit to the borough in terms of hopefully reduced health insurance claims. If we're looking at nutrition, some of the pre-diabetes checks, emphasizing the fact that physical movement, and not just cardio and weightlifting, just moving their body, being present in their body, learning to recognize some of those things is important. So could we look at, maybe doing some in-house stretching programs? Not to call Christy out, but Christy Schurr, who's sitting in the back of the room, owns Double Sunrise Yoga in West Reading. She came in after meeting with the captain and the sergeant. She came into a police department training in August, and the fire department was invited to come as well. So she got to meet pretty much the entire department between police and fire and work with them on a, half an hour yoga session? Just kind of taking them through like some very simple sun salutations, but getting them comfortable with kind of being in their bodies, because they're not for a lot of what they do. So the key to rolling this out is really having someone who has the time to sit with police and fire for, like I said, up to 5 hours a week. Encourage them, these are the simple things you can do and you can run through your current insurance program. And then in talking to both departments, I think what we heard loud and clear is nutrition and mental health would be the two components we would focus on first. And maybe that looks like down the road, there are businesses in the borough that are very much interested in partnering with us. There are businesses in the borough that our employees go to currently to get healthy meals, like Pemberton, like Clean Eats, that we then form a partnership of, okay, you employee X have, you've met with your primary care physician, you're working on nutrition, you're agreeing to work with us to share metrics, a questionnaire as to how are you feeling, are you noticing improvement, that we can long-term measure the results coming out of this. But then maybe, we offer as part of that, okay, when you're on shift, we're the borough willing to offset the cost of if you sign up for a meal subscription plan through Clean Eats. Say that the overall cost, if you did 4 meals a week to an employee, would be about $1,000. Are we willing to offset some of that cost? We'll match you 10%, we'll match you 15%, something along those lines. There's a whole host of things we could do with that, but that's the general ask to start with the first 6 months. And like I said, there's no budgetary ask that goes along with it. The money is already in the 2024 budget. That'll hopefully be approved on Tuesday. But we are going to continue to go after further funding through the Pennsylvania Commission on Crimes and Delinquency. They have a wellness initiative grant program. Some of you may be familiar with PCCD in general. We got a grant from them this year for the in-car police computers and some other technology upgrades. I've also met with Captain Holmes and Sergeant Quinter. We met with the Wyomissing Foundation a few weeks ago, and they are very much interested in potentially funding a portion of this. We have some other ideas for community members, businesses that we can talk to that I think would also be agreeable to providing further funding. In talking to one of the grant people at the PCCD, they love the idea and said, you might be onto something here that's actually a pilot program for other municipal police departments to start looking at doing. So, the ask at this point is for the motion that's on the agenda to approve us moving forward with the wellness consultant contract with Christy. And the reason I'm asking for Christy specifically is, one, she has a background in wellness through her former employer. This was pretty much all she did, was looking at existing health insurance plans, what wellness benefits are baked in, and then finding ways to roll them out to the employees that benefited from them. She's already worked with our two departments through those trainings, and, you know, frankly, we don't have anybody on staff that has the time and attention to dedicate to this.
Go ahead.
First of all, I assume that Christie is what, professional services, we don't have to go bidding and all that, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. I'd like to just say how impressed I am with the overall concept. I echo everything that's been said, but I also will point out that in my other life, I'm a real estate broker and therefore a salesman, and I think there is a tremendous potential here for selling this to potential recruits. We have had very deep problems of attracting enough quality people. We've been fortunate that we've been able to do it, but I remember the days when we would get a room full of applicants, and now we have maybe a table full, which, you know, we've been able to keep ahead of it. But I worry about that in the future. And I think having a program like this can go a long way toward telling people that we're different, that this is a place that you really want to consider highly, because we're doing above and beyond what other departments are doing. So I think it's important for recruiting, and I think we can also not ignore the fact that this is something we should sell to the community. The community needs to understand that we're doing things innovatively outside the proverbial box, that we're going to be able to continue to provide the level of public safety that people have come to expect, and be able to make sure that we can continue that. And I think overall, this is just a terrific idea, and I would strongly urge the committee to approve it and send it on to council for approval. Steve?
First of all, I echo what Fred said, very well said. You know, once again, Wyomissing is on the cutting edge of something. And we need to let everyone know about this. We've had instances in this borough, we've had fire fatalities that we've witnessed. We've had issues involving the police department, in which we had an unfortunate situation about 10 years ago. Maybe that could have been corrected, you know, or seen, and you know, the appropriate actions taken at that time. Very sad situation. These are all very positive things. I know fire department wise, thank God, you know, Wyomissing does not have that many fire fatalities. But knock on wood, yes, but we have been involved in numerous ones around the county. Unfortunately, they say, oh, well, we're all gonna get together, and if anybody needs help, this is the person to go see. Well, you know, that's a week into this, and everything's just boiling in their heads, you know, and they're not being able to get any of this out. That's not doing our guys any good, at all. We need to correct that. Is the person that we use for our psych evals, is he basically the borough's psychologist, or do we have such a person?
We could have someone assigned to us either through our EAP, or, I mean, our health insurance plan is very generous in that mental health therapy visits, there's no cap on how many you can go to per year. I mean, even something as simple as that, we've talked about getting information out to employees, like, you get your benefit statement, but do you understand it? Do you understand you can go to a nutritionist 10 times a year and it's covered under your plan? So I mean, again, some of this, there will be no cost to the borough because our insurance already covers it. It's just normalizing talking about it.
I think we really need, we used to have at one time, old Doc Woodring was the borough's, physician, and then became my brother for years. And, we don't even have a borough physician anymore, per se, And maybe those are avenues we should look at. These guys, they can feel comfortable picking up the phone, calling them and saying, really feel like I gotta talk to somebody.
Well, and that's the goal. Captain Holmes and I have talked about, when you're in that moment of crisis, it's not a great time to be like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm now going to regurgitate all of these things that are going through my head that I'm really upset about. It's nice if you've established that trust and communication relationship in advance. So, okay, now something bad happened. I feel safe with you.
And to just reiterate what Fred said too, about getting this out to the public, we got a lot of physicians in this borough that live in this borough and that are in many fields. They can certainly help, when they get word of this. We have, corporate owners that live here as well. They can help. It's a win-win. There's no other way to put it. Just on a side note on that, on dollars and cents, we've got to make sure that once this is instituted, that we notify our carrier, insurance carrier, because this is definitely should lower rates. What do you think, Steve? Huh? It won't. Oh.
At least not immediately.
Long term, yes. Short term, no. I'll save my comments for last.
I'm done. Thank you.
I would just like to go back to the underlying issue is the insurance issues with regard to the borough. I don't know what type of program we have for fire and police specifically that allows them to connect with, phys ed people if you did sprain your ankle, or is there some process where your commanding officers on various shifts are interacting with the officers that they're in touch with every day to make sure that they're doing what they're doing? Because it would seem like the first line defense here is what we already pay a lot of money for, which is give you guys first class health care. I mean, I know I have it, and I've been going to the physical therapist for 6 months for an old injury I've had. They pick up the whole tab. The question becomes then, how does that fit into the work schedule of the guys so that it works? To add another layer of outreach which they can go to. If they don't know what's already available, then adding another level to it is another level of management that you have to consider, because you have guys that said, well, I'll go to the physical therapy today or tomorrow, and which plan are you on, this one or that one? It's a great idea, but we already have something. I don't know if it works or it doesn't work. Has anybody used it, and is it effective? If it's not effective, we're paying for it. What are we doing with it?
I think, and Michelle said, Benecom came and spoke to the police department. We had 2 days where everyone was able to sit down with them, and it did open our eyes to a lot of stuff that we didn't realize we do have. So I think that's part of where Christy, I think, comes into, even back to what Bill said, like the liaison of knowing this stuff and helping us along with that aspect, because it has been out there, and I don't think it's been utilized near enough. I was surprised of all the stuff they offer to not just us, but our families that they're covered too. So it is kind of amazing the services we have. So I think a lot of it's just getting that out and utilizing it. And then our job to make sure that people do have the time to do it on the schedule. And I think I'm sure the Lieutenant Chief are happy to make that work in our schedule. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for us.
Yeah, I'm interested in the meals thing, sort of an active Meals on Wheels or whatever, but I don't know how you integrate that into the system. Is that for somebody who's been injured, or do you decide you'd like to, go eat Meals on Wheels and you go there and you get a discount, or how's
Sure.
that work?
I think we talked about go ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
can toss an idea.
Yeah.
So if they're able to meet with a registered dietitian throughout the year, which they are in their plan, it incentivizes them to eat healthier.
Oh, so we
working-
already have that in our plan now.
Yeah.
And then introducing it, working with local registered dietitians or physical therapists, like you mentioned, that are small in our neighborhood, that will come also on site, because it is a different mixed bag working with first responders and their schedule. We're already very cognizant of that. adding something on after someone's worked a 24-hour shift, which is what that gentleman's about to do. No, we're not gonna ask him to go to physical therapy at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But being able to stop by Kimberton because he met with a registered dietitian and we can incentivize and they get money back for doing such things, he could swing by, have a nice meal, and then go home. I mean, those are the luxuries that we'd like to bake in, utilizing your plan, but also working with human beings in this community because we do, to your point, we have so much strength in this community and professionals that will want to work with them, physical therapists in the plan, registered dietitians in the plan. You can keep going through it. But that's where we're gonna look at the first 6 months to a year and really see what is being utilized and how can we use these things that you already are paying for that most companies don't know. They really don't. That's why I existed at my former employer, because people don't have the time to find it. And then it's education and awareness of what's out there.
Well, it's not like we're spending more money. We're
No.
already spending it. We're just trying to find somebody to direct it in the proper way
In a
and
thoughtful
have the
way.
cooperation of the brass, so to speak, to get everybody involved.
Yeah.
Sounds like a no-brainer.
And meaningful and thoughtful. Yeah.
Has any thought been given to public works? I mean, they do a lot of physical work and they have susceptibility to injuries. And then there's, of course, our administrative staff.
Yes, so I mean, the idea was let's roll it out, mainly because especially the PCCD funding is limited on what departments you can use it for. And initially going after funding specific for first responders, I think most private organizations or funding sources have a very hard time saying no to that. But, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, if you work at Home Depot, before you go out on the floor, you have a 15-minute stretching routine you're required to do in the back, because they understand that standing on your feet all day and doing those types of things takes a toll on your body. And that is also long-term where we would like to go with it, that, you know, these things are being incorporated into their daily schedule, so it becomes second nature.
I do think we need data though. We need to,
Mhm.
it's
Travel.
nice to meet, but we
Yes.
need to find out whether people have actually done something.
And then what the outcome
But
is.
then that's how do you do that respecting HIPAA and all these other privacy rights, so there's a balance, but that's the only way to find out whether the information is effective.
The one thing with all this, I mean, this all encompasses, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're trying to reduce stress, okay? In our eating habits, in our exercise, the whole bit, it all has to do with stress. And I'll just mention, each and every one of you, imagine being at home, sound asleep, 2 o'clock in the morning. The alarm goes off, right? Your fire or your burner alarm goes off, I'm joking. The adrenaline is pumping through your system like there is no tomorrow, okay? That's unhealthy. Police officers and the firefighters, they're doing this all the time, okay? That is not healthy, and that has been proven that that is not healthy. That's the way it is.
The officer's just walking up to a stranger and not knowing what you're gonna get.
May I
I'd just like-
simply add, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'd just like to ask one other question, which you think is immensely important. And I know you guys that I'm looking at spend a lot of time doing athletic stuff, and you're always in shape, and you're in shape to do what you do. It just comes natural. I don't know if everybody we hired has the same brainwave patterns that you guys have about what you do. So the idea of joining a gym or doing this, that might be a pain in the ass for you guys, because you're already doing this stuff and you don't need to go to a gym. But that's something that's probably sort of baseline important, that our guys stay in shape and do this as part of whatever plan. I don't think we have a plan. I think we steal a few weights here and a few ropes here, but we really don't have a place to go, when to go, and how does that work? Because eating well is great, but if you're eating yourself into oblivion and you can't run down the street to catch a bad guy, it's not doing much good for the fire department or the police department. I'd like to hear you guys tell us how that
Could I?
I think some of the ideas, the consultant, to remind you to take that second to focus on yourself, like when we did those deep breathing exercises after our defensive tactics. I mean, I hadn't done yoga in the past, but it's been probably 15 years since I've done it. Just remembering how to breathe. Something simple as taking deep breaths. Someone on the outside can remind you that. She gave a tour there, and she was given a tour of the building the other day, and I wasn't there for her comments, but the gist that was relayed on to me is like, how can you feel good coming to this place? Look, you got junk everywhere. So we were used to it because we've been here for 20 years. So Sergeant Quinter and I and our new guy, we spent an entire day or two just getting rid of junk. We had an entire truck full of crap that we pulled out of there. And it does make you feel better. But you know, we never thought about it because we're just used to seeing it every day.
That's a subtle hint.
Yes. No, it's not.
In truth, yes, it's cold down there. So they're in a constant state of fight or flight. Their cortisol levels are constant. So just to your point of metrics, most of these humans after they retire die within 5 years. Their life expectancy is 12 years less than most of us. That's just a solid fact. I mean, those are metrics, those are real. So if they can't come back here after seeing something horrific that when they close their eyes it's gonna haunt them and come into a space, then I think we're doing disservice to our community. Yes, I will absolutely track the metrics. I've been taught well how to do it. There's buy-in. It is the perfect storm. It genuinely is, and we wanna be smart about this. So to your point, yes, the mental health, yes, there are physical ways. Could their gym be vastly improved? Yes, if I'm gonna speak transparently and that was overheard, yes, it could be. Could they have a space that has a nice soft chair when they come back after working for 15 hours that they could sit and regroup and breathe and get back into their body because they haven't been in their body and they've been trained to be out of their body? Yes, long term that will probably help with cortisol level because most of them die of heart attacks. Like, sorry, it's just all day long. I can parrot this out to you if I have to make a case, other than they're human and they're in our community.
And I think we have talked about the gym aspect and making that, again, starting with something, and then getting to that aspect would be nice. Where do we have a facility?
I mean, we went down and looked at the basement underneath administration last week. Like, let's start simple. Throw down a nice little area rug, get a comfy couch, and you need 5 minutes when you come back from call, somewhere to sit and just, I need my space. Like, we can do that with pretty low overhead and no real need from the borough. So I think there's, you know, as we continue to talk and meet and other employees get a chance to give input, I think there's a lot of really cool places this could go.
All right, my turn. To be clear, one of Christie's former employers happens to be where I work. She was our wellness consultant. She decided to expand her ideas. And I think you can tell that you're not going to find a more passionate person when it comes to wellness than she is. We've gone through a few. We've done other work with other groups. Yeah, they're not going to find a more passionate person. I can tell you that. When it comes to wellness programs out in corporate life, unfortunately, too many employers look at wellness as everyone wants to track your ROI, right, your return on your investment. And it is difficult to track wellness on your return on your investment, especially when it comes to a corporation who may be having the average lifespan of, not lifespan, but the average time that an employee spent at an employer is less than 10 years. I think we're in a totally opposite situation. We hire a police officer, we hire a firefighter. They haven't left much, right? They're here for a long term. So our return on our investment will be negligible, if anything. In fact, it may cost you more money at the beginning to run a good wellness program versus just, you know, hey, you had a bad day, go for a job, that kind of stuff. Christy, I know Christy well enough to know that she'll go hug a tree with a police officer if there's a problem. I know she will. I used to bust her ass about it all the time. That all being said, I think it's important that we know that the return on the investment isn't something that, if you're gonna get into this, the return on investment isn't something that we're gonna be able to mark in terms of dollars and cents. Doesn't mean we're not gonna be able to have metrics to see that everybody's using it better. I do have some questions. We have, I'm gonna use 30 as a number, 35 firefighters and police officers within
33.
Okay, I was using a round number, that's perfect. What do you guys think the buy-in's gonna be for the rest of your team? Because I would hate this to only be rolled out and only have it for 4 or 5 people. And in general, the wellness programs of people who are doing it are either someone who's already had an issue or is someone who's already in pretty damn good shape. Right? But I can't tell you how many times I've seen in my life where the person just happened to me 3 weeks ago. One of my clients is an ultra marathon guy. He'd go out and jog thousands of miles and died of a heart attack because he never went to the doctor. He never got his cholesterol checked. So I think it's not just the gentlemen and the women who take care of themselves now. I think you've got to catch the pre-diabetics before they become diabetics. Is it going to cost our health plan more? Absolutely it is, but will it save us in the long term? Absolutely it will.
Are there annual physicals required in the police department? There should be, right?
So my question then is, are we gonna be able to get buy-in, or are we gonna be dealing with 35, 33 people, of which 5 people are gonna use it?
I mean, good question, I didn't, but say exactly, I know from our end, speaking to most of our people, excited about it. I mean, again, I think, looking at some of the benefits that we're trying to tie into it, meal planning is a huge thing, especially in today's world for all aspects of people. If we can somehow tie that into them participating in this program, getting some metrics like, hey, originally we're gonna check your cholesterol levels and all these things to be part of this program, but some of that benefits is you're gonna get reduced meals, a chance to, when you're working, have meals just you go pick up for reduced or free. That should be something I think most of our guys like free stuff, so that should be easy. But I think in general, like, that's a big deal in today's world, so I think it's gonna, I would say more than 50% easily on the start. And again, I think it's how we sell it. And again, from top down, how it's sold is something like, it's a commitment that we're committing to, so. I know we've tried in the past with like having an annual testing thing where, hey, you participate, you match the levels that when you graduate the academy, you get something out of it, like an extra day vacation or something. Like, I think that's, our guys are all into maybe something like that also, you know what I mean? So we push it out and say has to be some incentives, unfortunately sometimes, but.
Is there some reluctance to the folks from fire and police to be asked politely to take a physical? Do they not want to take physicals, or?
So we do on an annual basis, based on our birthday, do a compliant physical, where we have blood work done with a doctor. Yes, sir.
It's there, we pay for that.
Yeah.
That's a requirement under an FPA.
Is it also paid for under the police department's insurance policy as well, paying the physicals?
So their insurance policy does not pay for that, but, I mean, a police officer could go get an annual physical through their health insurance, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. So
But-
it's already
Anybody's
available.
health insurance today has a free
Annual.
copay annual physical.
Well, that's why I'm surprised, but I also think that there's probably police officers who say, you know what, I don't wanna get thrown out of here. I don't wanna have high cholesterol and have this problem, that problem, and you guys say, it's time for you to leave. So is that,
Well, there's no restrictions on this, I mean, none of that would preclude us from being a police officer, so.
okay.
There's not an incentive
So if
to
they
go.
find out they're really sick and they're not gonna live very long, they can still stick around. They just don't wanna know.
I would think it's common sense. I think most people that we work with every day know that it's better to do that than not to. I don't think we have anyone who's like opposed to any of this stuff.
My point to my question is, a year from now, assuming that it all goes through, and we're sitting here, I don't wanna find out that 6 people have taken advantage of this and not 26.
Well, it's up to us to vote.
Right.
'Cause I agree with you. I don't want to do that either. We've already put a lot
Because
of
it is a
effort into it.
budgetary item
Yeah.
that we have to, we're already gonna be dealing with fun on Thursday, right? This is not gonna make or break the borough, I'm not gonna try to lie to you about that, but within a budgetary constraint, I have absolutely no problem spending money on the future health of our employees, whether they're first responders or quite frankly, the public works or the admin, I really don't. I just need it to be successful. So, that all being said, I've gone through a lot of wellness programs in a lot of different places. And if the employer isn't backing it, it doesn't work. If you're expecting a return on your investment in 1 year, it doesn't work. I can tell you that the person that Michelle has recommended to bring in will be a bulldog and will be calling these people and I'm sure we'll be biting at their tails to get them moving. So I think we picked, if there is the right one, we picked the right one.
And I would also add, I think we'd be more than willing to come back, whether it's midsummer and fall, here's where we're at.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah,
Have a-
absolutely.
Just a date, 6 months
6
from now,
months,
see how it's
yeah,
going.
Yeah.
My last question is, we have X number of dollars set aside in the budget,
$30,000.
$30,000. That is for our first responders, because if we go out for a grant, it's based on first responders. Would it make sense to jump in and get Westerberg's ambulance to try to apply for the same grant to see if they could participate with Christie? Because the stuff they see is
Mhm.
horrific too. And
Yeah.
they're servicing our residents. Just a thought. Now, for $30,000, but if we're looking for grants, maybe they could look for a grant too.
So
And I think they probably do something, but they don't. Christie, do they use you?
Not yet. It's the same basket, and you're correct.
I can talk to Tony.
So is the
Tony said
30,
every Friday is grant writing.
There you go.
so is the cost of this to hire a
Her.
wellness?
That's part of it.
Part of
So what, is that not enough, or
it. No,
the rest is
30,000,
gonna go to put a
that's
rug?
not ask too many questions here. 30,000 is enough.
No, I know, but is the rug gonna come out of this 30,000, or you guys find your own rug for downstairs?
I mean, that balance,
Yeah.
the balance that's left over is kind of, as we talk through this with other employees, like, is it the meal plan that's most important? Is it you want a fitness space or fitness, like, I think that needs to be the bigger collective conversation, not us deciding for them, it being a group decision.
I think we've got this ad nauseum, but I do have an open-ended question that I don't want an answer for. But it's something I would like to hear 6 months down the road. Whether we have a quote-unquote gym at the fire department, whether we have a quote-unquote gym in the basement of here or any other future potential building, or I would include here as the police department also. Does it not make sense? Because the firefighters have to come here, the police would have to go there. Does it not make sense to look at something that might be a little bit more robust and maybe a little bit more time constraint on it, where we could share some equipment with some other tax-paying entities within the borough? And yes, I am directly talking about the Wyomissing School District.
Okay. I thought that's where
I wouldn't give a crap if they parked a fire truck right in front of the place. No, it's, but I think it'd be something that they're, at least in the short term, because we have budgetary constraints on gym, it's been in the budget, it's been cut. And we're gonna have to travel somewhere. This borough isn't that big to go from here to the high school isn't, I'm not, listen, I know you gotta be in the fire station if they get a fire call. I get it, gotta be, you gotta be able ready to go, but I'm talking about maybe on time off, you have access to it. You're not gonna be able to be there when the kids are in there, it just doesn't work. I don't think, although I think that'd be kinda cool if they were
Well,
a
that
police
is
officer. I think it'd be kinda cool if they could work out with a police officer or firefighter.
So-
I've killed this ad nauseum,
No.
I'm gonna give you 20 seconds. I only know her too well.
I'm already doing after-school yoga with Wyomissing school students for a yoga club advisor. It just so happened to work out. So in the spring, we've already spoken, and the school's okay with it. They're gonna drop in and meditate with the kids, do some yoga. It also,
The
They're
more
not coming
these
on the worst
people
day
are
of their
involved
moment
with our
anymore.
youth and our kids today, the better off this world will be.
so you're on the same level. Wouldn't it be lovely if they could come in? They could
Okay.
also see it not on their worst day of their life.
I've killed it.
But there's
Yes.
also a gym just a couple doors down from the fire station, and perhaps we could reach a deal where
Correct.
we have 24/7 access with our own keys, people know who's there, be open to fire department, police
Your
department.
insurance would.
Well, that could be.
I don't know.
They
It
could come
would
into
be
my
a
yoga studio
requirement,
as well
right?
when it's not open.
With,
Yeah.
I'm
1
going
hour
right now.
per shift?
For physical fitness, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I make a motion to approve moving forward with the wellness program
Thank you.
specific to the fire and police departments using Kristina Schurr as a wellness board consultant?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there any more questions? All right, go get them, guys. It's a great
Thank you.
deal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep her in line.
Takes 3 of them.
By the way, if you sign up, you
Takes the
better,
police
if
department
you
and the
sign up,
fire
you better do it.
Thank you.
You know what else we
Thank
got?
you.
You know, there was no mention of the elected people. I mean, don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, look
You
at us.
voluntarily signed up.
Look at us.
Well, before and after, Steve.
Yeah, that's true.
Real opportunity for the.
I know, I'm in great shape for the shape I'm in.
There you go.
I've gained 20 pounds since she's left us. Fire chief position description and hiring plan. We'll bring that up. I assume this was all discussed at fire police ad nauseum, I would hope. But it was not.
No, they looked at it, but.
They were aware of it, Michelle, Colin, and myself met to just finalize, touches, and that's where we stand now.
But this is basically this is what the fire and police committee has recommended. Or will recommend.
I mean, the hope here is actually this committee recommends to council moving forward with advertising and starting the hiring process.
I read through it. I'm not a person who knows enough about this position to be able to tell you that, but if this had input from the fire, the police committee, I'm okay with it.
I mean, your current fire chief, Melissa and I put a draft together, based off of some other fire chief job descriptions we were able to find. I then sent it to Colin, he added additional, requirements,
So
things.
it's going through.
Yeah,
some
it's
process.
gone through the
Yeah.
full vetting process, Chris has looked at it, Labor Council has looked at it.
Dave.
He needs a motion, Dave.
Dave.
Dave, this is where you say I move.
What was your question?
Why don't you make a
Say you
motion?
moved.
Why don't you make a motion?
Why would you want me to make the motion?
Because
Who
you're.
else is on the committee?
Well,
I'll make a
I'll be
motion.
glad to
I'll
make the
motion.
motion.
All right,
We
Ron
like
has a
to go
question.
out on a high
Job
note.
Oh,
Oh.
Ron has a question, go ahead.
I just want to ask a question. Fire
That's why
chief,
you make the motion.
this is a fire chief position description, which is going to go out for potential candidates that want to be fire chief. When they sit down to read this, are we capable of making changes to this based on the individual person who's applying? Or is this, well, if this is just it, then I think we need to make sure it's not just it, because if other people come in here that have the same credentials as
So-
Ethan or other,
Look at the note, we do reserve to hire someone that's,
Right.
Chris, is this pretty much, considered, the obvious, not what's the word I'm trying to say?
Boilerplate.
Is this a typical contract?
this isn't a contract.
Well, not a contract,
It's
it's
what
typical
we have on-
description.
It's what we have on the job description.
Well, there's a lot of content to this job description, but it's a very high-level position that we're recruiting for, and I think that's appropriate to lay out high expectations. But as Michelle said, there is some flexibility in the language that allows us to choose a highly qualified candidate that may not meet all the specific requirements. And I think that's appropriate also. So with this document, you're setting a very high bar for who you're looking for, but you're also giving yourself flexibility to choose the best candidate, even if any specific criteria are not met. So I'm good with the way this is working.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if you're looking for a 20 years in the Bronx and or FDNY guy, no, he's not coming here.
Yeah,
that's
right,
fine.
yeah,
No.
that's fine, yeah, you can't cover every situation.
But I think there's enough
Okay.
candidates out there that we can get a good,
Good.
feel.
are there any issues if we get 3 candidates that all seem interested in and they're interested in us, but they have different issues with regard to this document? Why are you shaking your head?
Well,
But
it's
it's not a
up
problem.
to the
It's not a
borough
problem.
to choose
So
who
we can pick
among
one.
Borough can pick the person
The
they want.
interviews,
That
once,
should determine
once
that.
it's decided
Yeah,
who's
you don't have
going,
to check every box
Okay.
and say, you gotta
Yeah.
have a chance to
Alright,
take
okay,
it.
good.
Can I,
the interview process, which has not been firm yet, will consist of 3 fire chiefs that Colin is working on, talking to. They're the ones that got to interview these Yes, exactly. They're the most qualified.
May I respectfully request if the personnel committee is in favor of moving forward with this, that we add this to the agenda for the reorganization council meeting to approve advertising and moving forward? Just, it's important we get the ball rolling on this. The
Yes.
sooner this person can start, the better.
Good idea.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion to approve advertising and initiating the hiring process for the fire chief?
You've got the clerk for the course, but
It's the motion. Anybody want to second that motion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll discuss it at January 2nd.
I'd like a motion to approve position description.
Okay, we have a motion. You're not on the thing.
I am.
You already been.
I am.
Holy cow, we got all
What's the
kinds of
motion?
I know, it's very exciting.
Second.
Wait, no,
Motion
what's
is
the
second
motion?
to accept the,
Approve this.
Job
to accept the job description, sorry.
Yeah, you said to start the hiring process, but we didn't do the job description.
Okay.
That's what you meant by the cart and horse. All right, so we have a motion to approve the job description. Do we have a
I
second?
see, I
We
jumped.
have a second.
That's why I
All
said
those in
clerk
favor?
first.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Now we can go do both.
I missed that.
The interesting thing is I've already been contacted by about 5 people saying, could they get, people I know, can I get a copy of the job description? I said, I'll
Nice.
send it to you after Tuesday. It never gets approved.
All right, Park Department maintenance position, job description and hiring plan.
There is a Parks Department employee that transferred to the tree department that has now finished his 90-day probation period as of yesterday. So that open position in the Parks Department needs to be filled. Their job description is up on the screen for reference. But we do need to fill that position.
All right, so we have a Parks Department maintenance position open, and I'll make a motion that we approve advertising and initiating the hiring process for the Parks Department maintenance position.
Well, first you need to approve the job description for this one too. I apologize.
And
Okay, I'm sorry. It's that
Surprised
dot.
it doesn't say it's a full-time position, unless I missed that. There's nothing for full-time part-time.
We can certainly add that.
Well, I think it's assumed, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but.
But, I mean, we should spell out it's full-time.
Okay, so we need a motion, I'll make a motion to approve the Parks Department maintenance position job description after making it obvious it's a full-time position.
Second.
Motion is second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. I'll also make a motion to approve advertising and initiating the hiring process for the Parks Department maintenance position.
Second.
Motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Perfect. Greater Reading Chamber Alliance Supervisory Training.
You may recall this year and last year, we did what I'm gonna call middle-level management training. So how I originally sold this was, we put employees in mid-level management positions that have the technical skills to do their jobs, but we never really gave them the people skills to become a supervisor. So the GRCA has come in this year and last year to provide customized in-house supervisor training. This would be the third round, and we're talking about doing a customized program that would be a blend of leadership and management. I've taken both of those courses through the chamber, the leadership and then the management separately, and there's a lot of really good information in there about really emotional intelligence, understanding people, understanding how to motivate people, how to diffuse conflict, how to encourage people to work as a team, things like that. So,
Would be included in this.
police, fire, public work, well, parks and
But
maintenance, and
down to what level of employee?
the leads. So in parks and maintenance, you would have the leads. Greg, the assistant public works director, the sergeants in the police department, and the captains in the fire department.
How about council?
We could do that maybe separately.
Okay. Is this a budgetary constraint?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to, we have a motion to approve scheduling the in-house customized leadership training for the GRCA? We have a motion, we have a second.
I have a question.
That's on the after
Is
the
it,
second.
is it, where, second?
6 weeks, 3 hours once a week. So like this year, we did it at the fire station, so every Wednesday from 12 to 3 for a 6-week period.
Consider it like continuing education then.
All right.
So we have a motion, we have a second. We have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Again, all we're doing is investing in our employees. Borough Hall closure, discuss closing Borough Hall on Friday, July 5th.
This was a Fred Vogel suggestion. He emailed me like a month ago and said, hey, you may wanna consider closing the borough on the 5th, cause I don't foresee a lot of work getting done, and I was like, well, I don't have the authority to do that, that's the personnel committee, so he said to bring it here.
What's the 5th?
It's Friday,
The 4th.
meaning cause the 4th is on a Thursday and the 5th is a Friday.
Bridget. Day after the 4th.
They
Well, is there anything, I mean, what goes on after 12:30 on the 4th of July? With all the crap that's going around?
The door's locked.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's gonna be one of my questions, to be honest with you.
I'm literally only putting it on the agenda because Fred told me to, and I assumed he was gonna be here to make his point for
It's either
himself.
gonna get overtime on July 4th.
What's a typical
That's
July
already
5th?
That's already baked in.
Okay.
They are getting overtime on the 4th of July.
Is there stuff they have to do after the parade that's usually done on the 5th?
No,
Okay.
I mean, a lot of
When do
that,
they pick up the barricades?
sometimes not until 2 or 3 days later, if it falls on a weekend, we're not bringing people in on overtime. Normally the barricades just get stacked and put on the islands. But I mean, that's something too, as soon as the parade's over, Public Works could go out later, that afternoon. I mean, the Parks and Maintenance guys are around for,
I mean,
The
there's a good
post
chunk of
parade.
parks and maintenance people who are working on the
Yeah.
4th of July.
yeah,
I would just ask them to try to get as many of the barricades out of the way as you can. But if we're gonna give them the day off, make them work an extra hour to go collect all as many of the barricades as they can.
that's fair. Get as much done as possible on the 4th.
It'd be nice for them to have
Have
that.
some
Uh, I have absolutely no problem with doing this, just so we know we're not setting a precedent, so I think it needs to be mentioned that this is not setting a precedent.
And next year, the 4th will be on Friday.
Right, so we'll go off on the 3rd if we don't watch ourselves.
Yeah, no. Again, this is
So whoever's
not a
in,
management.
whoever's in
No such
charge,
thing as not setting precedent. I mean, it'll come up.
who's ever in charge of doing the work after the parade's over, should tell you how many hours you need to clean this place up enough so that we don't have a problem. And then give 2
I mean,
hours to go.
she's not wrong, if it was a Saturday, we're not cleaning it up on Sunday anyway.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday now. Alright, so does anybody wanna make a motion to approve this?
So
Does anybody wanna second it? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Enjoy it.
Mobile day.
there you go.
We can have a parade in honor of Fred that day.
Administrative wage increases.
Everybody is that for.
My first question is, are all these in the budget?
Yes.
This number?
Yes. So you are looking at, the only employees that are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement,
And these are all already accounted for in the budget.
correct, at this percentage.
I'll make a motion that we approve the administrative wage increases at 3% for 2020.
I do,
Go ahead.
I do have a question. The heading, non-collective bargaining increases for 2024, yet underneath the end it says 2023 salary. Don't you mean 2024 salary?
Yes, I obviously missed that, my apologies.
Well,
Thank you, I assumed that, I just didn't
well,
see it.
yeah, I mean, that's a key question, so that's the new salary.
Yeah, here's
24.
current is on
Current
this list.
salaries there.
Okay, I just wanna understand, I'm reading, see what I read here.
No,
Okay.
perfect, good call.
That was 24, okay, thank you.
Why 3%?
Because
Because that's what's in the.
that's the average of what's based in all the collective bargaining agreements. So your other 53 employees are already getting that.
Okay, so we have
So
a,
other than, I'm sorry, other than changing positions, how do people get raises other than treading water?
That's what we're gonna talk about next under bonuses. You're talking about administration?
No, I'm used to the private sector having increases and the raises depend in large part on your performance.
I actually
And-
just read an article last night that that's no longer the best way of doing
And
it.
that may be, I'm just telling my mindset, and the notion of giving everybody the same raise regardless of whether you're a superstar or whether you're barely scraping by, to some extent matters.
I wouldn't argue, I see your point, but Michelle has approved all these.
Well,
Steve has a valid point. I would not have anybody on this list that was getting a negative performance review, and we have in prior years, if there was somebody that was treading water and could do a lot better, we're gonna give you X percent of that 3% now, and we'll revisit in 6 months the balance.
well, I have a follow-up with Jana's commentary. I think that 5 months ago, or 4 months ago, Fred, who I think was the chairman of the personnel committee, asked everyone to provide him with input for at least Michelle. And that went nowhere. I think handing out raises just because the collective bargaining agreement says somebody who's in the union gets an automatic raise doesn't necessarily flow to us, because we haven't got the raise in 100 years. So much for us. But the people that are not collective bargaining, we deserve, and I've been on the table on this, to have evaluations done by the people that are getting raises. And we should look at those, because despite the fact that Michelle is the borough manager, we're the ones that are passing all these things, and people looking at us about how we're spending money. I think that needs to be done.
I'm sorry, I don't think it's appropriate for council to be reviewing staff reviews other than mine. Those staff reviews are done with every employee, and if there is an issue, it is brought to your attention at this committee.
Well, there's no basis for what you just said, other than you don't think we should review other people that work here. I think we should review everybody. There's not that many people here.
I think she does review everybody.
No.
He wants to review.
He
wants to read every review.
Council should be able to see the reviews. We can't just give raises out just because there's gotta be reasons.
So this has nothing to do with this topic, but it's just my philosophy. If we don't believe in Michelle, then yes, that's probably what you should do. But our job, my job, when I ran for this 3 times, wasn't to sit here and be the borough manager and dealing with the day-to-day operations. I think Michelle, or the borough manager, whoever it happens to be, is that person. And if that person lets us down, we have proven that at some point they don't have the ability to let us down anymore.
So what's the purpose of Fred asking for information?
He was asking
Evaluation?
specifically on Michelle, I believe.
Oh, all right.
Yes,
this
he was,
it.
right.
Okay, so leave it at that for starters.
I believe Fred is in the process of trying to do a
Oh,
review.
you haven't been interviewed yet?
No, and I mean, to be clear, that was at my request. I asked
She asked.
for
she's
a
asked.
review.
Well, she should be reviewed every year,
I agree.
not to her request. We as a committee should say, hey, somebody should interview her
I
and
believe
do a
that's what's
performance
supposed to be.
review.
What
I believe that's
has,
what's
what has
supposed to happen
taken
here.
place in the past, okay, is that we have met as council in an executive session, okay? And has asked, Michelle, to let us have the room. We've discussed openly, and then it's always been the head of the personnel, committee, to then conduct the interview. At least that's been my experience since I've been.
Has that,
And I think the issue now is, I don't know if it's because, everyone's been a little busy or what, but it hasn't taken place yet. It's gonna, I'm gonna talk to Fred, because Fred is gonna chair the committee next year again, that I will, push for him, that this must be done by the end of January.
did you have last year, Fred's the last year?
I haven't had a review since 2019.
Since 2019.
So the former borough manager did not review me either.
Well, I'm sorry, that's.
Well, we had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well,
I agree it should be done
Well,
anyway.
yeah.
totally agree
I
it should be
mean,
done.
of anybody that we should be concerned with, and not you personally, but the position, we have to have a kindness, or not a kindness, have
Responsibility.
a satisfaction that she indeed is doing her job.
Couldn't agree more.
And
Yeah.
she needs the feedback.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more.
But we haven't done it, and we already
We haven't
have the
done it
numbers up
since
there for
2019.
next year.
So take me out of it and approve everybody
Well,
else.
yeah, you have, well, yeah, you can't, yeah, that's a council problem, I think.
I agree.
It's not your problem. Well, you can ask for it, but you can't make council do it.
Try.
You know, these are just numbers that are approved, budget approved. There's not cast in stone that anybody gets 3%,
No, you,
unless it's under
Was that what we're voting on?
contract.
Yes, but I mean, if you're that concerned about me being part of it, then take me out of it, cause I don't want the rest of those employees to suffer if you have an issue with me or approving mine.
I'm not concerned with the 3% at this point, cause I have
You're
no
more concerned
basis.
about the fact there needs to be a review of the.
Yes.
amount.
Right,
I couldn't agree. And I totally
you know, I have no
agree.
basis to agree or disagree with the 3%.
I
Why
know
don't you
Fred
make-
has had some
Why don't you
discussions.
change the motion to saying to approve these salary increases, but the borough manager is subject to a successful review?
Well, I would say this, that if you agree that the borough manager's salary should be reviewed, not reviewed, or performance review should take place at some point during the course of the year. If you look at the salaries there, and you just work on Michelle's salary, and let her determine all the other salaries, that's, it's not the way it's really done anywhere in the world, professional.
Who said
No.
Michelle determined those increases?
Yeah, I know, but
No, who said, you just said Michelle determined all those increases. She did not.
she just said she.
Well, I did at 3%, but I was working off their current salary, which is what they were
Yeah, we gave her
hired
that
at and
number.
have moved up to.
We as
Well,
council gave her those numbers to work
What,
with.
3%?
Yes.
It's the budget number.
Right, but that's an overall. We didn't say 3% for everybody, just,
Well, if we didn't say 3% for everybody, and the 3% for everybody is up there, how do we change the 3% that's up there if we don't have anything to do with it? The only person that does is Michelle, and you told her to give everybody 3% if you get
we
3%.
didn't say
What-
give everybody 3%.
All right.
What is, well, we always go by what the,
Just
what am I
increased
looking
by
for?
3%.
Contract with the CBAs.
Right.
Cost of living, whatever.
Yeah, and
Whatever
that, and that is
formula
roughly
Current cost of-
3%.
No, the current cost of
Wait,
living
wait.
increase is higher
Wait,
than
wait.
3%.
Yeah, cost.
More than that, absolutely is.
Whatever,
Oh, that's
whatever
what I forgot.
formula you use. Many formulas.
Truck was so much better.
Yeah, 3% in the budget, that implies, could I give, you know, Bab 2% and give Miller 5%?
That's
or-
correct. You
Or
could.
whatever, that the whole nets out to 3.
Good.
That's not necessarily saying everybody gets 3%.
Right.
And maybe they won't
Michelle
deserve the
is
same, I don't know.
recommending that everybody gets 3%.
And there are other people we will revisit in 2024 based off of coming up on work anniversaries and things that they have accomplished that I will be revisiting, maybe additional increases.
Well, as long as we're all friends talking about this, I would say, I think, that Melissa needs a bigger raise than where she's at. It's relative to what she does, and I see her do.
The borough manager has said
She
she
can say,
thinks
that's okay, and I
everybody
can
gets a
say
3%
what I just said.
increase.
I think she deserves a bigger raise than 3%, because I think she's underpaid.
There is other topics on this page.
Okay, I'm looking for them.
Well, this is,
So
So
we're,
we're,
in a sense, living in like, well, everybody's above average, but everybody's getting an average.
I'm gonna repeat one more time what I've been saying. The borough manager, who we put as part of the, in charge of this job, has said she thinks everybody should get a 3% raise. There is additional pieces of this coming up in the administrative bonuses that maybe other things can be discussed.
Aren't you really saying that you're going to approve the recommended salary increases per the budget?
yes,
That's what
No.
they, the budget, right?
The budget is overall number, it's not individual.
So
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 actually,
this is within the budget, absolutely, but it's not dictated by.
She is determined it should be 3% across the board, right?
Yes.
So that was her recommendation. So in fact, if you don't think she's qualified or adept at doing that, well, then that's another issue. But she made the recommendation to give everybody 3%.
Okay. Does everyone make a motion to approve the administrative wage increases? We need a motion to table, approve, or deny administrative wage increases for 3% for 2024. I'll make a motion to approve. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
I would like to, personnel to discuss next year, time increases to employees.
Yes, right. Absolutely. And also get this thing, review process.
Oh, that's an excuse.
Manage that. I can't even believe that.
Totally agree.
And I'm sorry, our review of her ought to be done this month.
What?
Our review of her ought to be done this month.
I agree.
Are we going to make it?
You mean by the end of January?
By
I mean,
December.
this month.
Well, I don't think it can be done, but that's, maybe
You're only
Fred
talking
can
a
work
week.
on that.
You're only
Well,
talking
Fred
a
should
week.
work on that.
Okay.
Okay, let's
Administrative
calm down.
bonuses.
Let's give him a chance.
Administrative bonuses.
You did this 6 months ago.
Before you tell how I do have a general question. You have a bonus and it's predicated on some basis, hey, you have a profit of $1 million and if you make more, there's a table of how much bonus you get. What determines how much or if I give a bonus to a person? That you recommend?
I think that's where you get to the subjectivity or the objectivity
It's very
of the
subjective.
individual person
It's
versus.
very subjective.
Yes.
And my argument would be that I think we're very competitive with salaries. And I think, as far as I know, they're all being paid fairly well, and they're very competitive. I think you open up a Pandora's box with administrative bonuses. I shudder even to think about it. Unless you can quantify how you give a bonus, it's gonna be so subjective that is, anyway, that's.
But doesn't a bonus fall outside the realm of pensions and all that other
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Well, the next question is, under your theory, that Michelle's the person who does this, to open the door that Dave's talking about, opens the door to a lot of people, and that we have no say in them getting a bonus. And I'm not sure if you want to aggregate the abilities of everybody in the borough to Michelle, that basically we're just, chop liver.
Can you show
Sure.
bonuses?
I have nothing to show you other than I was gonna ask for, so administrative employees are the only ones that this applies to, so it goes back to the people that were on the screen under the raises. The 3 people I was gonna ask for were Melissa, Greg, and Phyllis. Melissa, cause Ron, I agree with you 100%, Melissa goes above and beyond every single day, and honestly, she's my left hand and my right hand, I would be lost without her. In terms of Phyllis went above and beyond to work with Greg, the parks and maintenance staff, and all of the summer staff to figure out a much more efficient and cost-saving way of doing payroll instead of actual paper sheets that had to be filled out by every employee and then dropped off by the lead of the public works director. She set up geofence locations at the playgrounds and the pool so that the summer staff couldn't punch in when they weren't actually there. And what used to be a pretty lengthy process every other Monday during payroll has now been streamlined into the click of a button and everything being sent by email or them getting access to it on the server. And in terms of Greg, I was going to ask for a bonus for the fact of him not only working with Phyllis to troubleshoot all of those issues for that payroll, but he has done an outstanding job in the first 10 months as the Assistant Public Works Director of reining in a lot of the issues, the just general morale, the infighting, some of the other problems going on there, and he has really set the tone of, you know, I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire and you are gonna be accountable if you're an employee in any of these departments. The leads have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and he has just really jumped in feet first.
He's getting a 3% salary increase.
Correct.
If,
Are those the only administrative personnel, or is that subject different than administrative and salary? Are they the same thing, or are there different people involved?
These are the only administrative employees. The only three that I'm asking for a bonus for are Greg, which would be Capriola, Phyllis, which is Smith, and Miller, which is Melissa.
Bottom three.
Yeah.
On the sheet.
And Greg's the one that on the 1 year anniversary, I'm probably gonna come back and ask for a higher general wage bump. Because based off the 24 collective bargaining agreement, the leads will be making more money than him without overtime.
So are you included in the administrative bonuses?
No,
She just said she wasn't. There's only 3 people, Miller, Smith, and Capriola.
I didn't realize that she was.
again, not taking
That's why I'm
it,
not talking about the wages is one thing, the bonuses are different.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything personally against the three people or anybody. I think it's a dangerous precedent. If indeed I expect them to do a good job. That sounds crazy, but hey, for Phyllis, I expect her to look at better ways to improve payroll. That's part of her job. So I don't see, you know, I'm sure she's doing a good job. And if indeed that is the case, then you say give her more than 3%, give her 5%. Hey, she did a great job, this and that. That's fine. Give Melissa 5%, whatever. But I think to determine it every year based on the bonus, I think is dangerous.
This is not precedent setting, it's been used for
We did
years.
this.
Bonuses,
for 8
yes.
years.
Bonuses.
Yeah, we did it.
Really?
We did it
Well,
last year.
I don't care, I'm just
And-
against
We
it.
did it last year.
And part of the
I
rationale
think
is
almost a decade ago.
employee retention. You want to keep people by compensating them fairly and competitively.
That's why you give them.
Rather
That's why you give them a salary.
Rather than arbitrary 5% instead of 3%, this keeps us from accumulation in the pensions and so on. And the borough does not spend as much
You
money.
mean, why don't bonuses could be considered essential?
They're specifically exempted from pension
Oh,
calculations.
that's.
All right, I'd like to have a recess. Can I just leave it to, go to executive session to discuss personnel matters? All employees, I would ask them to leave.
I need a key to get back in. I don't know why this door's still locked.
Mr. J.
Thank you.
You got
Okay.
about 30 seconds.
You got it.
You good? All right. So now we have the topic, number 10 of administrative bonuses. Michelle, would you like to tell us? Oh, yeah, in public session, in private, in executive session, we discussed personnel issues and personnel issues. Go ahead, what are your recommendations for administrative bonuses?
Respectfully requesting a motion for a bonus of $5,000 for Melissa Miller, $5,000 for Greg Capriola, and $2,500 for Phyllis Smith.
So moved.
First, do we have a second? I'll second it. Questions on the motion? I get it. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Unopposed, the motion carries. Pass it on to council.
That's needed to negotiate
Police,
special raises.
Police Department Lieutenant Contract.
Jana, I know you had some comments that I didn't really get to look at in depth, I'm sorry.
I apologize for being able to look at it soon.
I do think, outside of that, Jana made a good point that we need to go back to the civil service rules and regulations and clean up the definition of police officer, because we use that term interchangeably throughout the rules and regulations, but it currently talks to an entry-level sworn police officer. So we should probably broaden that definition. But other than that, are there any questions on the lieutenant's proposed contract?
Yeah, I brought this up a few days ago. It has to do with review by the lieutenant, who's supposed to do that review. We're beating the same drum. wanted not to have John Phillips review it is that in the event that some police matter comes up that would necessitate his needing to confer with or discuss with the chief might be important to the situation that the lieutenant might find himself in. Well, I think that's a great idea. It doesn't make any sense because he's part of this unit, the chief being his boss, and to exclude him from the evaluation of one of his key personnel, actually his key personnel, and have Michelle review this guy, makes no sense. So.
Chris, how do you see this handled elsewhere?
Well, the chief is not excluded from the review. The chief will have input into the review, and I see this as a check and balance type situation where Michelle will be ensuring that the review of the lieutenant is done more objectively, because she has some oversight. But the chief is not excluded from the review. And also I want to point out that the review is not discipline. I mean, the lieutenant is still subject to disciplinary processes that will be overseen by the chief and also reviewed by Civil Service Commission. So, you know, I feel this is fair to the lieutenant. It's actually what the lieutenant requested, and I understand the reasoning behind it, and I don't think it excludes the chief from still performing all of the expected roles that he has to oversee the lieutenant.
I think that's gobbledygook. The chief of police sees this guy every day of the week, every minute, every hour he's talking to him. He should do his review. Whatever other type of review you want to have, Michelle, counsel, you can add that. There needs to be a specific review for police officers, including but not limited to the executive officers, and they should be done in a way that it's done everywhere else in the law enforcement world. But to add some process where Michelle gets to do the review, but John gets to sit in on it and all this stuff complicates this to an extent that it shouldn't be. If it's going to be complicated, it should be complicated when the lieutenant shows up and he hands you the review that he signed that the chief of police gave him. And then we can play with John's review and we can listen to what Michelle has to say. But she's not a law enforcement person. She can talk about what John gave for Christmas for presents, but it has nothing to do with law enforcement. Law enforcement needs to do their own review. And I see no reason why. It makes perfect sense. It also makes perfect sense to say, if I get in trouble, I want to be able to go to my chief of police and let him tell me what a great guy I am. It doesn't work that way. His boss evaluates the performance of the guy that's in trouble. And if it's good news, great. If not, it's not so great. It doesn't get excluded.
So if I read this correctly, it says the review shall be performed by the borough manager with input and performance metrics as provided by the chief of police.
That's gobbledygook.
Yeah,
Okay.
I disagree. I agree with you.
I also agree that his boss ought to be reviewing.
The initial review.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's gotta be the chief.
Doesn't make
I
any
don't see how
sense.
he can do it in his own.
We do have an organizational chart, and we have one for a purpose.
Yeah.
This goes against the organizational chart.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
So are we making a recommendation to change item number 4?
I don't know that you need to make a recommendation so much as I need to go back and have a conversation with the lieutenant, because that was the language that he wanted.
Well,
He's not a rookie. This guy knows what's going on. If you just tell him, listen, we're gonna do what you do everywhere else, in the military and in police departments everywhere. Your superior is gonna do your review. We're not gonna get the Secretary of the Treasury to review your review. Your commanding officer does your review, period. And if he says, I don't want the job, I'd find it hard to do.
I'll make a motion that we table the police department lieutenant's contract for now.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? Passes. Or goes on to council.
Michael stays here. Now, who, all right, to follow through on that, do you go talk to him now to, okay, so you know what's gonna happen next, okay?
Executive session, do we have any other personnel matters that have to go through executive session? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second, thank you, have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody.
We'll see you Thursday.
See you Thursday. Forget it, I'll see you before that.
So you take it back?
I take it back.